In The Legend of Zelda, combat has always been a big part of the game. You encounter hundreds of foes and gigantic bosses after all. And while we do get stuff like a bow and slingshot, there's one weapon that we use the most by far: the sword. Hacking, slashing and stabbing our way through anything that tries to stop us, and most of the time we use the Master Sword for this. However, there's also another magical blade in the series that can defeat the most powerful forms of evil: the Foresword. But which one is better actually? Sure, they're both great at what they do, but there must be a superior blade, right? Well, yes, and today we will find out which one is best. Now in one corner we have the Master Sword, which was originally crafted by the goddess Hylia as the Goddess Sword, and was then later on forged into the Master Sword by the goddess's chosen hero and its spirit Vi. They bathed the blade in the 3 sacred flames located across the land that would become the Kingdom of Hyrule. Faor's flame made the goddess sword longer, giving it extended reach and twice its original strength. Nehru's flame enhances the dowsing ability of the goddess sword, allowing Vi to search for rupees, treasures, gratitude crystals, and goddess cubes. And Din's flame filled the goddess sword with a sacred light, giving it 3 times its original strength and the power to repel evil. After this final tempering, it transformed into the Master Sword, becoming even stronger after being augmented by the blessing of Zelda, turning it into the true Master Sword. Clearly, this weapon is filled with a lot of power, reforged by powerful godly essences, and then blessed by the reincarnation of Hylia. However, in the other corner, we have the Foresword, and unlike the other one, this blade was not originally of the world of Hyrule, nor did it originally go by that name. It began as a creation of a race of tiny, thumb-sized beings known as the Minish, and was known as the Picori Blade. It was used long ago together with the Light Force to defeat evil, being seen again during the events of the Minish Cap. However, it was remade and then combined with the 4 elements, which are crystalline jewels infused with the powers of the 4 major elements of the world, fueling the blade with all these elements to turn it into the mighty Foresword, the most powerful weapon in the game. So instead of being made by a goddess empowered by their essences, it was made by a mysterious race and the power of the world's elements. And don't be fooled, those Minish guys are pretty darn strong, since their magical skills are unrivaled. Heck, the cap they created before the events of the game, which eventually led to all the problems with Vati, is so powerful that it allows you to wish for almost anything, just like the Triforce. So they're pretty good at it. Alright, now that we know what we're talking about, let's look into a couple of things to find out which one is the best. We're going to look at the blade's design, its abilities, and versatility. Now let's start off with our first one, the blade's design, which is actually incredibly important when you think about it, because what I mean with this is the usability of the weapon and where it gets its power from, because it needs to function well as a sword after all and have enough power. First of all, let's have a look at both of the blades and compare them, because there are some big differences between them which will mess with their effectiveness in battle. Now by the looks of it, the blades are about equal in length. I measured this by taking the length of the grip, which is usually a set size, depending on the sword type of course, and then dividing that through the length of the actual cutting and stabbing part of the weapon. Now I will admit it's not a perfect way of doing it and to an extent flawed, but now we at least have an idea of how long they are, and they seem to be about the same length. And it seems like they're a normal one-handed longsword, also known as a bastard sword or a hand-and-a-half sword. So, pretty normal stuff. The reason why this matters is because of reach. If one of them has a significantly longer weapon, then they can strike while being at a safe distance from their foe. And even when we look at the crossguard that they have, which is this little bit, then we again see nothing special. They both have a solid one preventing any blade from sliding down and cutting into your hands, which can be quite unpleasant as you can imagine.
Join me, Link, and I will make your face the greatest in Korodai, or else you will die.
I'll never join you!
And both of them also have crossguards that go up as well, with the Foresword having some sort of half circle with points, and the Master Sword having these wing portions going up. This can be really useful for trapping a blade at the crossguard, which can limit your enemy from attacking you. So that's a thing both of them have that's very handy when using it. There's only one thing that really sets them apart, the shape of the actual blade, because one is crude, makes the sword heavier, and also not as good at cutting, in certain ways. I'm talking about the Master Sword, of course. Because first of all, it has this little thing at the bottom, which doesn't add anything but weight. Then when you look at the grind of the blade, you can see it's rough and they left a lot of material on it. And it doesn't even taper to the center or anything. This will make it both less effective at stabbing and cutting and also more effective, mostly because the blade is heavier. However, in general, they did a better job on the Force Sword. So clearly in terms of design, the Force Sword wins. But is this also the case when it comes to the elements that power it? Well, probably not. While we aren't sure how powerful these elements are, there's a high chance that they are equal to or weaker than a Master Sword's godly blessings. So because of this, we will say that they are equally powerful in this department, with a slight edge to the Force Sword. Now on to our next point, their abilities. Now both weapons can harm ones carrying triforce pieces, and of course they can also vanquish evil. But there are some differences, because the Master Sword can destroy magical barriers and break curses that involve powerful dark magic, and can also lock away demons. Stuff like this is seen during the events of the Wind Waker, where you finally go to confront Ganondorf, and at the end of Ocarina of Time when getting rid of the King of Evil. Aside from that, it can also unleash skyward strikes by channeling heavenly energy, which can deal quite a bit of damage. Also, before people mentioned the time travel in Ocarina of Time, it was only able to do this because of the sages. So it isn't the power that the weapon holds itself. Now, while this seems impressive, the Force Sword can do so much more than just this. It can do the following: repelling and banishing evil, creating clones of the wielder, providing time travel when in need of force gems, sensing portals to the dark world, sealing away bad guys, and even breaking curses. We see more than enough examples of this in titles like the Minish Cap and Four Swords Adventures, where you go back in time when not having enough force gems, cloning yourself when hunting down Vati, and destroying as well as interacting with dark magic. Clearly this weapon can do a whole lot more than the Master Sword. But does it make the Force Sword truly better? Well, yes. One of them is seen a lot more to defeat evil, but in the end the Force Sword has way more abilities and also quite powerful ones. So when it comes to this category, that weapon wins for sure. To be honest, it was quite obvious from the start. Now let's move on to our very last subject, versatility. While it's great to have abilities and certain powers, the way you use them is even more important. So what could you possibly do with the Master Sword in combat when facing a foe? Sure, you can use it like a normal sword, hacking, slashing and stabbing away at any foe that comes around the corner to stop you. However, that's kind of it. It doesn't have a lot of abilities after all that could be useful in combat scenarios. So it's limited in a way. The only thing you could do is use the mighty Skyward Strike, which is actually a powerful attack you can do from a distance. For example, an enemy charges at you directly, coming in at high speed, and you need to do something before you're screwed. Now you could just raise your shield and block the incoming attack, and then you have the option to counterattack. Simple. However, is that really effective? Well, no. What you could also do is quickly charge a Skyward Strike and hit your foe from afar, so it can be useful as a ranged attack, and when fused with electricity, even to stun an opponent briefly. However, while this is fun and all, the Force Sword's power of manipulating time and creating clones is way more useful. Let's say you're losing a battle, being on the last slither of health. No worries, because... And so the whole fight starts over again, giving you another shot at an encounter you had originally lost. However, you probably don't even need to use that power, because the godly Force Sword gives you the ability to make 3 clones of yourself. This makes it ridiculously powerful. You have the option of commanding 4 links all wielding a Force Sword. Even if the Master Sword wielder shot out as many Skyward Strikes as he could, then he still wouldn't win the encounter. There are just too many links coming for him at once, and a lot of the attacks he throws out would still be dodged. You could even deploy all kinds of complex strategies with these 4 dudes under your control, like some sort of pincer movement, or a surprise attack where one distracts and the other 3 are the surprise element. So of course the Force Sword also wins this round. The clones are just too useful, to be honest. Now in the end, which blade is better? Well, it's quite obvious, isn't it? The Force Sword, of course. It has way more abilities and all of them are insanely powerful and useful, while it can still do all the important things the Master Sword can, like banishing evil, breaking curses, and sealing all the bad guys away. So in the end, I am left confused on why the Kingdom of Hyrule just doesn't use the Force Sword more. But hey, I am not the king, and it does say that the only thing able to defeat Ganondorf when powered up by the Triforce is the Master Sword, so I guess that's the reason. However, if you ever need to fight any other type of evil, then the Force Sword is by far the best choice, making it the ultimate winner here.